Good afternoon. I'm Steve Lowry, the editor of The High-Low. I am joined by our food critic and columnist, Brian Addison. Brian, how you doing?
I'm well, man. How are you?
I'm fine, considering
Happy Tuesday.
we were sitting 6 feet away from each other about 2 minutes ago. So whatever.
Yes.
But this is the illusion of this. Like, there are things you can't see, like our producer, Stephen Smith, who says very hurtful things, even though you can't see him, hurtful things about me blathering on. But I could blather on about that, but forget it. We're here to talk about Brian's very popular, very successful, most underrated restaurants in Long Beach. Brian, you have told me you do other popular lists, like the best restaurants in Long Beach, but this is the most popular one. What do you think it's about this subject that intrigues people so much?
Well, I think its popularity is because it's a very Long Beach list. I think Long Beach has always been a place that fights for the underdog. So I think, we kind of always had this chip on our shoulder about being in the shadow of LA and, Orange County co-opting us without our permission. And so I think that's why people enjoy it so much. And who doesn't like to hear about an underdog doing something really well?
And plus, you do love that thing of where you know about a place, whether it's a restaurant or a band or a news organization, before everybody else knows about it, right? You're the one that gets in, right?
Yeah, it's fun. Well, and you know what's funny? So you encouraged me this year to finally part ways with a lot of the places that have been on that list repeatedly. And I'm so happy that I did because, for me, it's like by this point, if you don't know Tito's Bakery or, you don't know Prime, figure it out. So it was nice to finally give some spaces to new spaces.
Let's go to how you define the list. If a restaurant is on this list, does that mean that the restaurant is in trouble? Or does it just mean that there's a perception of them that you think is kind of ill-fitted?
I would never advertise a restaurant as in trouble. That's just unfair to its owners. And, what I base it on is just simply like the food should be good enough that there should be a constant crowd, and I don't see one.
Okay.
So it's a great way to boost businesses. It's a great way to also get people to other neighborhoods, 5,000 Pies or Casa Chosky's on the west side. Like I don't think very many people outside of going to Santa Fe Imports really venture to the west side for food, and the west side is really growing in its culinary scene. So for me, it's a pure booster piece, which I am unashamed of admitting.
Before we get started now, this is where you come in. Send us your questions, send us your suggestions, send us your comments, send us how much you hate Brian when he tells you that In-N-Out burgers are overrated. Yes, he did. All those things. So please participate. We want to have some fun with it. We'll get started now. So let's start right at the top. Of all the 15 restaurants on this list, if you could only suggest one that someone go try out that they haven't tried out, which restaurant would it be?
Ooh. I would have to go with La Chancla.
Okay.
I think it's because it's a personal one for me. A lot of people know Sam, my partner, as my dude. That's what I often call him. And my dude was born in Jalisco, a town called Jalos, which is about like 2.5 hours east of Guadalajara. And La Chancla reminds me of the family gatherings whenever we go to visit his family in Jalos. Just like comfort Mexican food, homemade tortillas. It's called guisados. I know, right? Downtown.
Someone's looking to get home pretty fast. Yeah.
Guisados are just these kind of stews, for lack of a better term, that, traditionally sit in these clay pots for hours on end. And yeah, you just go and you serve up what you want. It's very familial. It's very communal. And La Chancla is the first place in Long Beach that really represents that style of Mexican food. And it's just stellar. Plus, the owner, Ishmael, is just salt of the earth and wonderful. His mom's in the back cooking the tortillas and cooking the food every morning. It's just, it's a really genuinely cool experience that I hope everyone gets to experience.
By the way, Brian, when you're doing your job, there are so many restaurants out there, and there are the ones that are very well known. And so obviously you're going to gravitate towards that. There are basically celebrity chefs. You're going to gravitate toward that. There are areas that we know are very well known for dining. You'll gravitate toward those areas. When you're finding places like these that maybe are in areas where people don't expect, the chefs are not world famous. Is this somebody chirping in your ear? Is this you drive by a place and you see it and you go, that looks interesting? How do you find these kind of unknown places?
Through a ton of ways. I mean, I have what I call my little birds. I have like, I have friends all the time that text me and give me suggestions. Sometimes, you know, if Sam, you know, gives me the car because he doesn't want to deal with it, so I have to take him for work, I'll just go drive around and see what's around. La Chancla was a text from a friend. They went like 2 days after they had opened. It was just a random occurrence. So, but to play on your point about keeping up though, it's hard. Like I don't think people understand how hard it really is. I mean, I still haven't been to Bebo, and it's been open for almost a year. I haven't been to La Tarantella. I haven't been to Little Coyote. I haven't been to Sushi Mafia. It's hard to keep up, and it's impossible for one person. So these lists are always living and breathing, and they're never fully correct. There is no fully correct list ever that can be produced through one person.
Our first comment was that someone said, I legit gained 10 pounds because of that place, La Chancla. So,
right? It's so good. And it's so simple too. Like that's the other beauty of it. It's so simple. It's not overly complicated. It's tacos and burritos. You know, it's impossible to complicate it in order there. You know, there's no alcohol. It's just aguas frescas or Mexican Coke. And there you have it. And it's really, yeah, it's a gem. I love that place and I love the family.
You have a place on this list that I am very familiar with because I've driven by it a million times. And I swear to you, every time I drive by there, it seems to be closed. And I thought like, well, maybe it's just kept as like a museum piece. That is Dave's Burgers, which is just, it's basically located in the parking lot of a gas station.
Yep.
And it looks really cool. It has a cool clock that is never telling the right time, which is another reason I thought it was closed. And so I've always been very interested about what it does and how well it does. And according to your story, it does what it does very well.
It's been there forever. Like one of the things when I first created this list was also to talk about old time staples that don't get regularly mentioned. I mean, in Long Beach, Joe Jost will never have an, you know, underfalling of mentions or name drops or shirts. But there's been places that have been around for decades that are still serving up great food and just don't have that like name recognition that a place like Joe Jost has. And for me, that's totally Dave's Burgers. Like it's kind of what In-N-Out wishes it could be in a sense. Like, okay, well, first off,
all right, let's go.
In-N-Out is a great fast food burger. It's just overrated. That's the only, you know, their fries suck. Their fries suck, people. Like you have to drench them in American cheese, grilled onions, and Thousand Island dressing for them to taste okay. Like their fries are crap. Like let's just be honest. And there's better burgers too. I think the style of burgers that have come to evolve in America are becoming greater and greater. And for me, Dave's represents the classic burger that's just really well done. Like there's just something about it. And it's also the vibe. I mean, yeah, you're like standing in a gas station parking lot and it's tiny. It's wonderful. I love that place.
And you can build your burger as large as you want there, right?
Oh yeah, there's no limit, by the way. So if you wanted to do an 8x8, they'll do it for you. I saw one dude get a 5x5 and I was just, wow. I mean, okay. Praise be to the man who can polish that off.
Hey, just to update things, you had a piece in the on the site, I think yesterday and today, about a place called V Burger. Tell people about V Burger.
V Burger, I love when I have the chance to tell a cool story attached to food. You know, there's nothing better than just like talking about good people. And Paula and Alex Armstrong, they're the owners of this place called V Burger. And some of it I didn't even go into in the story, but you know, like they signed their lease off of Retro Row. So they're at the northwest corner or northeast corner of Fourth and Cherry, a little bit up on Cherry, right by Wide Eyes Open Palms. And they signed their lease in January of 2019, and they got everything ready and they were good to go. It took a year to build it out. You know, that's not uncommon. And COVID hit. And so they had to stall that opening. Their windows got broken during the initial protests on May 31st. So they had to deal with that. And they're not, they definitely don't have a silver spoon being fed to them. You know, they had to keep their daytime jobs during all of this. So there was no time off. It was double work. And they're really good humans. So they basically adopted dogs and became really connected with the animal shelter in Long Beach and started volunteering their time. And that's what actually made them initially go vegetarian, was their animal rights advocacy. So they volunteered all this time, and then they started learning about the egg and the dairy industry and were appalled by that. So they went full vegan. And so they're definitely former meat eaters who still crave meat and still like meat. And they began veganizing all the meals that they used to have. And then they came up with this concept of a really decadent, you know, add chili, add mac and cheese to your burger type place, just vegan comfort food. And then on top of it all, using that platform for animal rights advocacy, any employee who volunteers at the animal shelter gets a raise, has a thank you for volunteering at the shelter. So Alex and Paula are just salt of the earth humans, who've been through a lot of crap to make this happen. And it's opening tomorrow. I'm super stoked. You and I are gonna go, so we'll let people know. But yeah, just
My
good
job.
people, good people. Like,
Hey, got a question. Now you've already mentioned La Chanclas, maybe your can't miss, but let's go with next level. So someone from Facebook said, hey, if someone's coming to town to visit Long Beach, which place on the list is a place not to miss? So I'm going to add a little something on there. Which place on the list would you just, if someone was going to come and visit, that you would say this place most reflects Long Beach?
most reflects Long Beach.
Yeah, you get like a good feel for Long Beach at this place.
I would bounce between two.
Okay.
A&J Seafood Shack is the newest on the list. And it's owned by this Cambodian couple. For anyone visiting Long Beach, I hope they take the time to learn, even just briefly, about our Cambodian community. I mean, for those that don't know, outside of Cambodia, Long Beach is home to the largest concentration of Cambodian and Cambodian Americans. And that was birthed out of a genocide. The Khmer Rouge almost annihilated them. We took them in the US, and they kind of bounced between the Midwest and here, and they kind of largely concentrated here because they're an ocean community. They love seafood. Seafood's a part of their culture and heritage. And they've built this really just flat out beautiful community in Long Beach. And the food that they make is simply incredible. And, you know, I mean, I don't mean to be overly poetic or deep, but every time you have a bowl of noodles at the Noodle Shack, you know, you're eating a bowl of resilience. You're eating food that was almost annihilated from the planet. So A&J Food Shack is just an extension of that evolution. And it reminded me of the food I've had at Cambodian weddings that I've been invited to. Just an incredible seafood. You know, I mean, you can get a whole lobster if you want, and their house special lobster is just spectacular. So I would say A&J Food Shack, Seafood Shack for sure. And then the other one would be Rasselbach, up in Bixby Knolls. You know, Long Beach is an immigrant community, 100%. And it's not just Latin American immigrants. It's a lot of European immigrants. And Bjorn Rissa, the owner of Rasselbach, is from Germany. And it is like, it's the best German food I've had outside of Germany proper. It's just excellent, excellent German food. And the quality is stellar. He has an amazing patio. His staff is always warm and welcoming. And he's just a really great example of the European immigrant that we don't talk about often that invests in the community.
And just right there, you've mentioned 3 restaurants, each of them authentic cuisines of 3 completely different areas, Mexico, Germany, and Cambodia. We kind of take for granted, this isn't normal. You're probably not going to get this in Omaha. You know what I mean? Like, it's so kind of blessed. And here it's like, oh, do we go to this place? Let's try this place. I want to talk
about the beauty of LA too, you know, like and for a hot second, New York, you were the place. You were, and now LA is slowly taking on really kind of the immigrant food capital of the world. I mean, yeah, on this underrated list, let me just scroll through it real quick. Yeah, Cambodian, Mexican, German, Thai, Chinese, Persian / Levant, like, yeah, it's wonderful, and it's such a reflection of Long Beach too. It's a community.
By the way, someone on Facebook just said A&J garlic shrimp. So there you go. Get the garlic.
Oh, hell yeah. Like anything, even their non-seafood, they have this lemongrass beef sandwich, and it's wonderful.
A&J happens to be in a spot where there've been a lot of restaurants, and a lot of time, as an outsider at least, there always seems to be spots, Brian, that are just cursed. It doesn't matter who goes in there. You've seen this. Is your belief that there are some places that, for whatever cosmic reasons, will never work, or is it almost just coincidental and the restaurants keep making bad choices?
Well, I would like to not believe in the curse, but that place, and I even told, you know, the owners of A&J, you know, we corresponded on Instagram, and I was like, oh God, I hope you last. And he even mentioned, you know, like, yeah, dude, so do we, because, you know, that place, it's been decent places, although the one before it wasn't really that great, Frankenfries, but there was a torta place called Slice and Dice there, and it was amazing. And that didn't last. And before that was another torta place called La Esquinada, and that didn't last. And I'm thinking A&J is going to last. But then there's you make me think of other places, and the northwest corner of Broadway and Atlantic is unquestionably cursed. Like, it doesn't matter the concept that goes in there. So it was the Pepper Corner, I think, which was just mediocrity. But it had a great patio. It has this huge, great patio on a great intersection of streets. Didn't succeed. We got our first cider house there, Great Society, and the food was solid. The offerings were great. That didn't work out. Now it's a crab shack, and they are already going to move to another location. So they're going to move downtown into the streets, the retail complex that's the streets. So maybe the reality of a curse is real, and maybe it's not, you know, superstition, but
you and I were talking about this earlier. So if you're on this underrated list, you often talk about how diners think that the only way you get success in the restaurant biz is by giving great food. And you always point out that's probably 4th or 5th on the list. There's so many other things that go into making a successful, popular restaurant that has nothing to do with food. If you're on this underrated list, or if you're an underrated restaurant in general, are there at times that the people who are running the restaurant are under the same kind of misapprehension and think, hey man, all we have to do is put out good plates of food and people will come? And if that is true, Brian, what's the common thing that maybe underrated restaurants are not doing that aren't getting people coming through the door?
Well, you know, that's more complex of a question than, you know, meets the eye. Like, some of these places, you know, like Gypsy's has been around for almost a couple decades. And when you have an older generation that is completely disconnected from contemporary marketing tools, yeah, it's unlikely that they'll have an Instagram, or social media presence. So, you won't be shocked to find that some of the restaurants on this list have no social media presence, period. And then some do. As to why they don't constantly have lines out the door, that's a thing I'll never really understand. I mean, yeah, I don't know. It's just like places in LA. Some places I'm astonished are so popular, and maintain that popularity, and then there's other places that don't, that get it. And I truly don't know. It could be a matter of self-marketing on behalf of restaurants, but it's so many factors, I couldn't pin it down on one.
Facebook says, shout out to the coffee parlor for being underrated. You agree?
Yeah, totally. Not only the coffee parlor, but the merchant too. And I put those in the same vein because they have a kind of an American bakery vibe to them that uses European techniques to create just really simple, good things. The toasts at Coffee Parlor are amazing. They had this fig and house-made ricotta toast that I had once. That was one of my favorite things. It was on my favorite things list. Coffee Parlor is awesome. And by the way, if you haven't had it, the Coffee Parlor has a drink where they pour a Mexican Coke into a cup and then add espresso to it. It's awesome, by the way. So it's delicious, and it will definitely get you wired for the day.
Yeah, you wouldn't need like a car after that. You'd be just Hey, we got about 5 minutes, and Brian just finished a story that I'll be reading right after this. We'll probably have it up this evening. I think it's going to do, I think people are going to find it very interesting. Brian, it's about people who work in restaurants and how they have to deal on basically a daily basis with some people who can get a little cranky when they're asked to wear a mask.
Yeah. What's funny is that the good thing about this story, people, is I thought it was going to be all bad. And it's not all bad. There have been restaurants and servers who have told me great stories, and they're in the piece about customers being really respectful and accommodating. Even one server told me that, he got a 50% tip on an $80 bill. So we got a $40 tip, so people understanding. But the big elephant in the room is the stress of these customers who politicize a health mandate. The thing I want to just ask of customers is, like, when you step into a restaurant, first off, like, the server is highly anxious. They're exposed to people constantly throughout the day. So their health is being put at risk to provide you a service. And then behind that, you have restaurant owners who might have been closed during the entire initial extension of the COVID pandemic, and have just reopened. So they are running on a very, very, very tight and limited budget. Not everyone wants to work right now because they don't feel safe. So workforce is limited, hours are limited, capacity is limited. So you have all these stresses, and to be the person who just simply won't wear a mask adds an unneeded level of stress for people who are already stressed out, and all they're trying to do is serve their community.
About servers, you've done a lot of work, some great work about the health risks, about being in a restaurant, just the stress and the time and all the things that go along with it. A lot of it has been about people in the kitchen. This kind of points out that even, forget if there wasn't even a pandemic, servers have to meet so many different types of people all the time. Of course, there's always people passing around germs and things like that. So this has always been present. And of course, servers are always the person who is going to get the brunt of people's frustrations and people's meanness and pettiness and all that kind of stuff. So that I can imagine many times a server goes home just vibrating with all these kinds of horrible things that have happened to them. This just kind of accentuates, that's a really tough job.
It's, for those who have never been in the service industry, bluntly put, they'll just never understand it.
Yeah.
It is such a stressful job. And one of the things I bring up in this piece, and I'm so glad I was able to address it, is, you know, there's been some people, I have multiple examples in the piece of leaving a 1-star review on Yelp because of being asked to wear a mask. And what was so frustrating hearing this is, while that person might have thought, yes, you know, I stood my ground, how dare they be rude to me, I'm going to leave this 1-star review on Yelp, the ripple effect of and the stress of that one review, you now have to prompt that server to call their boss to say, hey, there's a 1-star review on Yelp and I'm the one they're talking about. So now their boss has to look into the situation, see if the server is speaking from a point of validity. Then they have to look into what happened to assure, you know, that like maybe the customer was right. The extra amount of stress you just put on an already stressed person in business is so inappropriate and so unfair and so disrespectful. And it's happening continuously right now. And so it's like, I just want some of those people to think, you have your right to believe what you want, but laws are laws. And if there's a health mandate that a business has no formal say in how it's implemented and they're simply following it, don't take it out on them. Like,
right. They're just trying to do their job.
They're literally just trying to do their job. The business owners are just trying to stay in business. Like, it's really simple. Be courteous, be respectful, be kind. It's not hard, but we're obviously not seeing that in the big level.
Someone pointed out on Facebook, this whole thing has made mean people meaner and kind people kinder, I think.
Yes, that was one of my favorite comments.
Yeah.
Someone else brought that up in our food scene group on Facebook. And I was like, what a poignant and simple way of showing what this is really bringing out in people.
Brian, thanks for doing this. I will see you at V-Burger tomorrow. Thanks again for tuning in. I think tomorrow we have the mayor. Yeah, the mayor's going to be on. I think Melissa and Kelly are going to be talking to the mayor about all kinds of things. Maybe he'll talk about his favorite underrated restaurants. I don't know if he wants to touch that one. That's a little hot. Brian, thanks a lot.
Thank you, man.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.